Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive. And today we're tackling a topic that's pretty much unavoidable these days, teen sexting.
Hmm,
Now, whether you're a parent, an educator, or just someone who's interested in the digital landscape, this is something we all need to be aware of.
absolutely. It's one of those topics that can feel a bit taboo, but
Mhm.
the reality is sexting is incredibly common among teenagers.
And the stats are pretty alarming. We're talking about 1 in 4 teens sending or receiving sexually explicit messages. That's a huge number. And it really raises questions about the role of schools. What are they doing to address this?
Right. And it's interesting when you compare that statistic to other risky behaviors. The percentage of teens who are sexted is actually higher than those who report smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol.
Wow, that puts it into perspective. So
Yeah.
we're talking about a behavior that's arguably more common than some of the things we traditionally associate with teenage rebellion.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to how embedded technology is in their lives. Smartphones and social media have completely changed the game. It's so easy to create and share content. And for many teens, there's a sense of detachment. It doesn't feel real in the same way that face-to-face interactions do.
It's almost like we've given them this powerful technology without the instruction manual. They're navigating this complex digital world with very little guidance.
That's a great analogy. And while some teens might see sexting as harmless exploration or just a way to flirt, it can have serious consequences.
Consequences that they probably aren't even aware of.
Right. And we're not just talking about the social and emotional fallout, which can be devastating.
Yeah.
We're also talking about legal ramifications.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that sexting can actually land teens in legal trouble.
Absolutely. Even if it's between two consenting minors, sharing explicit images of anyone under the age of 18 can be considered child pornography.
Yeah.
They can have serious consequences, fines, jail time, even being registered as a sex offender.
That's a scary thought.
Hmm.
I can imagine most teens aren't thinking about those kinds of consequences when they hit send. They're probably caught up in the moment, the excitement, the pressure to fit in.
Exactly. And that's why education is so crucial. We need to make sure teens understand the risks, both the legal and the emotional.
So it's not just about scaring them straight, it's about giving them the knowledge to make informed decisions.
Right. It's about empowering them to protect themselves. And it's about addressing the underlying reasons why teens might engage in sexting in the first place.
Because it's rarely as simple as just being reckless or rebellious, right?
Exactly. There are often deeper issues at play. Things like peer pressure, body image, concerns, the desire for validation, or even just plain curiosity.
It makes you wonder how much of this is tied to the pressures of social media, the constant comparison, the need to present a certain image.
Oh, absolutely. Social media plays a huge role.
Right.
It creates this environment where teens are constantly bombarded with images and messages that can distort their perceptions of themselves and their relationships.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the culture that's grown up around it.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have open and honest conversations with teens about these issues. We need to help them develop critical thinking skills, media literacy, and a healthy sense of self-worth.
It sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach. Education, open communication, and addressing the wider cultural influences.
Absolutely. It's a
Ah.
complex issue, and there's no easy fix. But the more we understand the factors at play, the better equipped we'll be to support teens and create a safer digital environment.
Well said. I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the alarming statistics on teen sexting, the potential legal and emotional consequences, and the role of social media in shaping teen behavior. Okay, so in part one, we dug into some pretty heavy stuff about teen sexting, the stats, the risks, the role of social media.
Yeah, it's definitely not lighthearted stuff.
Definitely not. But knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to support teens.
Exactly. So in this part, we want to shift gears and talk about the parent's role. Because let's face it, it's not always easy to navigate this digital world with our kids.
It can feel like a whole different universe sometimes.
Seriously, it's like they speak a different language with all the emojis and slang and acronyms. I can barely keep up.
Right. It's a constant learning curve.
Right.
But that's where empathy comes in. We have to make an effort to understand their world, not just judge it from the outside.
So put down our judgments and if we listen to what they have to say.
Exactly. And not just listen, but try to understand. What are the pressures they're facing? What are their fears and aspirations? How do they see the world?
Easier said than done sometimes, especially when teenagers aren't exactly known for being open books.
True. But that's where creating a safe space for dialogue comes in. They need to know they can come to us with anything without fear of judgment or punishment.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? I mean, how do you bring up the topic of sexting without it being super awkward?
Well, first off, ditch the lecture mode. Nobody responds well to that, especially not teenagers.
Yeah, that's a surefire way to get them to shut down.
Instead, try approaching it from a place of curiosity and concern. Ask open-ended questions, like, hey, I've been hearing a lot about sexting in the news lately. What are your thoughts on that? Or have you ever felt pressure to share something online that you weren't comfortable with?
So start a conversation, not an interrogation.
Exactly. And be prepared to listen without judgment, even if what you hear makes you uncomfortable.
Because the goal is to keep those lines of communication open.
Right, absolutely. If they feel like they can't talk to us, they'll find someone else to talk to. And that might not be the best influence.
That's a scary thought. So we need to be the safe space, even if it's tough sometimes.
It can be tough, but it's so important. And remember, we don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes just listening and acknowledging their feelings is enough.
So validate their feelings, even if we don't agree with their choices.
Exactly. And if we don't know the answer to something, we can always learn together. There are so many resources available online and in our communities.
That's true. There are websites, books, support groups. We're not in this alone.
And sometimes the best resource is other parents. Talking to other parents who are going through the same things can be so helpful.
It's like a support group for the digitally bewildered.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, parenting in the digital age is a challenge. But it's also an opportunity to connect with our kids in new ways, to help them navigate this complex world, and to equip them with the skills they need to thrive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. It's the final part, and we're turning our attention to schools.
Yeah, we've talked about the risks parents face, but schools play a huge role too.
Absolutely. They're on the front lines, so to speak.
Right. And for a long time, schools relied on those kind of outdated approaches, like stranger danger lectures.
Oh, yeah, I remember those. Like, don't talk to strangers online. Don't give out personal information.
Exactly. But the thing is, those warnings don't really resonate with today's teens. They've grown up online. They're digital natives.
Right, it's like second nature to them.
And the risks they're facing are often from people they know. Friends, classmates, romantic partners.
So it's not some creepy stranger in a chat room. It's the people in their everyday lives.
Exactly. And that's where things get complicated. Because we're talking about social and emotional complexities, cyberbullying, pressure to share intimate images, navigating consent in a digital context.
It's a whole different ballgame, and it requires a different approach. Are schools starting to catch up to this new reality?
They are, but it's a slow process. The old just say no approach doesn't cut it anymore.
Right. We need to go beyond just telling them what not to do. We need to give them the tools to navigate these complex situations.
Exactly. It's about teaching digital citizenship, helping them understand their rights and responsibilities in the online world.
So things like privacy settings, online reputation management, critical thinking skills.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical stuff. It's about the social and emotional skills too. How to handle conflict, how to set boundaries, how to build healthy relationships.
It sounds like a massive undertaking. Are there schools that are doing this well?
There are some great examples, schools that have integrated digital citizenship into their curriculum, that have created safe spaces for students to talk about these issues.
So it's not just a one-off assembly or a guest speaker. It's woven into the fabric of the school.
Exactly. And it's most effective when it's a collaborative effort, involving teachers, administrators, counselors, parents.
Whole community approach makes sense. So what can we as individuals do?
Well, we can start by having those conversations with the young people in our lives,
Yeah.
asking them about their online experiences, listening without judgment.
Showing them that we care and that we're there to support them.
Absolutely. And we can also advocate for better digital citizenship education in our schools. Talk to teachers, administrators, school board members.
Let them know that this is a priority
Yeah.
and that we need to equip our kids with the skills they need to navigate the digital world safely and responsibly.
It's an investment in their future, and it's an investment in the future of our society.
Couldn't agree more. So let's all do our part. Have those conversations, advocate for change, and create a safer and more positive digital world for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and empowering.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, we're all in this together.